where my mouth is this week. Chiefs minus 3.5. The Chiefs can win the Super Bowl. Maybe they are not going to. Maybe they're having a down year. Everyone agrees they can win the Super Bowl. The Cowboys cannot. The Cowboys have not won 3 consecutive games in years. Years.
Is that true?
2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been 2 years. They haven't done it this year. They didn't do it last year.
2020.
That's years. The Chiefs are going to win by at least 4. Yeah, whatever. It's been years. It's been multiple years. It's very simple. Next, just show.
All right, then. The Kansas City Chiefs came up short. So, there you have it. This contest was an absolute roller coaster. I'm recording this deep into the night, getting all of my post-game analyses done right now. It's 1:30 in the morning. I just got back from Thanksgiving festivities, all of that. Spent time with the family, and now I've just finished reviewing all 3 games back to back. So, it's a bit of a marathon. I've compiled my notes because I want to have these videos ready to publish on Friday. Look, this was a phenomenal Thanksgiving matchup. Mahomes versus Prescott. And I have to say, both quarterbacks delivered exceptional performances. They truly did. Dak did throw that one interception. He provided a gift. And yet, for the Chiefs, that single mistake wasn't sufficient to alter the final outcome. I've discussed this concept repeatedly in previous seasons. All the Chiefs required in the past was for their opponent to commit any kind of error, any sort of turnover, whatever it might have been. And that was it. That was all Kansas City needed. Boom. Game over. We're walking away with the victory. That characteristic simply has not been present this year. They won the turnover battle, and yet they still lost. This stat right here, folks, this is the story. 10 penalties for 119 yards. I believe there were 4 defensive pass interference calls. I mean, Mahomes performed at a very high level. He certainly hampered his own cause a few times by holding on to the football for too long. But then, of course, he also conjured up some of his signature magic. That scrambling throw to Worthy, I was with my family when I saw that live. And my reaction was, oh my goodness, what am I witnessing right now? That was an absolutely spectacular play. But then, on the other side of the ball, Dak was out there extending plays with his legs. He made that incredible throw for a touchdown. I think it was to Williams, correct? Yes, to Williams. He looked sharp. It was just a high-quality game, you know? Dak's final line, 27 for 39, 320 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a passer rating of 100. The Chiefs had no answer for the Cowboys' ground attack. They simply could not stop the run. Dallas averaged 5.3 yards per carry, totaling 137 yards on 26 attempts. You obviously had the big 43-yard run from Davis. That kind of explosive play can be absolutely devastating. The Chiefs surrendered 68 yards on just 2 massive chunk plays alone, one to Turpin and the other to Davis. CeeDee Lamb stepped up. Jake Ferguson stepped up. I mean, every single player on that offense elevated their game, and that was the key differentiator. This Dallas Cowboys offensive unit collectively rose to the occasion. This wasn't merely a Dak Prescott heroic solo effort. Everybody contributed, the running game was effective, the offensive line held firm, Lamb, Ferguson, everyone fulfilled their role at various critical strategic junctures. And truthfully, in many respects, it was a similar narrative for the Chiefs. Xavier Worthy made a huge, not Worthy, Hollywood Brown made a significant touchdown reception. But then, he catches that ball, and you're still trailing by 3 points at that stage. He jumps into the crowd and starts celebrating, and you're thinking, man, your defense now needs to come up with an enormous stop. You don't have time for celebrations right now. What are you even doing? There's still 3 or 4 minutes left on the clock. I was just baffled, but indeed, everyone on Kansas City's side stepped up too. Rashee Rice for them did have a strong game. Xavier Worthy contributed. They got their running game going. Mahomes, obviously was brilliant. 4 touchdown passes. His line, 23 for 34, a 129.7 passer rating. But the fundamental difference was that when it was all said and done, the Dallas Cowboys were just more polished and composed. They converted 9 of 16 third downs, whereas the Chiefs were only 5 for 13. They amassed 457 total yards, 457. They averaged 8.2 yards per pass attempt, compared to 6.6 for the Chiefs. It felt like this Chiefs team played well, but somewhat restrained, muted. Meanwhile, the Dallas Cowboys were just playing free and easy, and they kicked field goals. They actually kicked field goals. I'm watching all these teams, all these games, and everyone just keeps going for it relentlessly on 4th down. 4th down, 4th down, 4th down. And the Cowboys' approach was, you know what? We're just going to take the points. Now, to be fair, a bunch of those situations were easier decisions, like we'll kick a field goal here because it's 4th and 8 or 4th and 6. So I understand the logic, but it was just smart, disciplined football. They didn't overcomplicate it. They didn't attempt to do too much. They converted the 2-point attempt when it was necessary. They just made the plays when they had to. I mean, it's just, to me, the most significant factor was that the penalties became truly crippling for Kansas City, and they could not prevent the big, game-altering moments from the Cowboys. They couldn't mitigate the damage. If you hypothetically remove the endless stream of penalties from the Chiefs' ledger and you also eliminate some of those massive splash plays from Dallas, Kansas City probably finds a way to escape with a win. But the Chiefs were incapable of doing that. They could not put a lid on any of the explosive plays. They just couldn't. It felt like it was one explosive play after another, and the Chiefs had no response. And then, in those critical moments where the Chiefs' defense has so often risen to the challenge in the past, a point I've highlighted before about getting the ball back into Patrick Mahomes' hands for a potential game-winning or game-tying drive, the defense couldn't deliver. They couldn't get the stop. And again, full credit is due to the Dallas Cowboys. They did not relinquish possession. There was a moment where the commentator Romo was saying, if you stop them here, and it looked like it was going to be a 2nd and long situation, but then it turned into a 2nd and short, right? All those tiny incremental things added up. It sets Dak up for a simple completion, a conversion. Boom, bam, it's over, victory formation. In many ways, this game was incredibly thrilling and awesome to watch, but it was also, in its conclusion, incredibly straightforward. So, it's not as if you can really point a finger at Kansas City and proclaim, you blew it. You completely messed this game up. Oh my gosh, what was that? It wasn't a case of, they just couldn't run the ball, or, Mahomes had no time to throw. No, that wasn't necessarily the reality. Both squads were actually executing at a very high level. I remember, again, I was building connections with my niece and nephew, so the game was on in the background. I saw the general flow of the action, and then, as I said, I just went back and watched the entire thing properly, but I got the general sense of the energy. It was really interesting to hear their commentary. My dad, my uncle, and a bunch of other people. They were talking, saying, wow, this is one of the greatest games I've ever seen. So I sensed that, right? I sensed that infectious energy. I sensed the magnitude of the plays being made, and it created this atmosphere of, whoa, how is this contest going to conclude? How is it all going to end? So you can't really look at it from the Chiefs' perspective and circle one specific thing with a big red marker, proclaiming, this is where you failed. This is the precise point where everything fell apart. I don't believe it was necessarily that simplistic. The core issue was that you just could not halt the big plays. Overall, you had difficulties containing the run game, but it's not like Dallas ran the ball 35 times for 200 yards. It wasn't a case of, man, clearly the Cowboys' entire identity was just to run it down their throats. Dak Prescott threw the ball 39 times, right? It just, once again, felt like everything Dallas did was so explosively potent. I mean, you had the 51-yard strike to Lamb, the 39-yarder to Pickens, a 19-yard gain to Turpin. Then you have a 43-yard rushing touchdown from Davis, a 25-yard run from Turpin, right? It just felt like chunk play, after chunk play, after chunk play. And on top of that, they were able to run the ball with pretty consistent efficiency as well. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's, and then you add on all the self-inflicted penalties. Yeah, man, this was one of the better Thanksgiving games in recent memory. Not just today, but in general. The Bengals game was, I don't even know what that was. And the Packers-Lions game, Amon-Ra St. Brown obviously goes down, which is a real bummer. That's going to significantly alter their trajectory. Losing a player of that caliber. It's like if the Cowboys had lost Pickens in this game, that would have been a massive blow. And then there was questionable play calling from my viewpoint in that game. Questionable decisions to go for it on 4th down where you could really be critical. Like, dude, this was poor game management. This was a clear mistake right here. You cannot levy that same criticism for this Chiefs-Cowboys game. I just thought this was high-quality football from start to finish, across the board. But like I said, the Kansas City Chiefs defense could not get the job done when it mattered most. It was just, and again, credit to the Dallas Cowboys offense for consistently putting Kansas City's back against the wall. And this is exactly what I had articulated going into this game regarding the Cowboys. I stated that a victory like this Going into Arrowhead and beating Kansas City is far more impressive to me than defeating a divisional opponent like the Philadelphia Eagles. Some Cowboys fans got quite upset about that take, and well, that perspective has aged perfectly. You are not going to convince me that this win wasn't more impressive. You are not going to tell me that this performance instills more confidence in your team moving forward than what you witnessed against the Philadelphia Eagles. This game definitely provides way more excitement and a far greater sense of belief. And if you're a supporter of the Kansas City Chiefs, you're watching this, and you're asking yourselves, why were we not able to finish the job? Why were we incapable of slowing down Dak and this offensive machine? Why did we continue to surrender such massive chunk plays, seemingly one big gain after another? Why was our own excellent performance not enough? Why was this not sufficient? It's again the same refrain. Mahomes played really well. He was great. Well is an understatement. He had almost 300 total yards, a 129.7 passer rating, an 85.1 QBR, 4 touchdown passes. I mean, it was all there for him. And again, his playmakers were making plays. They absolutely were. They were even able to run the ball fairly effectively, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. They just didn't have any of those truly massive, back-breaking, explosive plays themselves. And they didn't have any of those truly catastrophic moments where they fumbled and lost possession or threw a pick six or anything like that. They played a relatively clean game, aside from the penalties, obviously, the 10 penalties. Yeah, it's a tough one to digest. They're now 6-6. The Cowboys are 6-5-1. The Chiefs seemingly have to win out to secure a playoff berth. And this is precisely why I previously stated to the Cowboys that if they fail to make the postseason, they have ruined a year. It's like Jerry Jones has done both brilliant and terrible things. That's why I said, if they were ever going to consider trading a player like Micah Parsons, the time to do it was before the draft. Then you could have started to integrate impact players earlier in the season, at the very start of the campaign, because now you have a team that appears capable of doing some damage, but it might be too little, too late. You constructed this team too late in the process, and now you may have wasted a year of this high-powered offense, right? It's just, and it would be absolutely crushing if the Cowboys don't find themselves in the playoffs. That is a devastating prospect. Now, for the Kansas City Chiefs, they are getting a bit fortunate with other results. The Ravens lost, and that certainly helps them. Again, they aren't necessarily a lock for the playoffs either at this moment, but it's a very peculiar spot for everyone involved. I mean, the Chiefs are at 6-6, right? The Texans could lose. The Bills obviously have a bit of a gap. The Jaguars have a gap. The Chargers have a gap. That's kind of where you're looking. But if the Ravens had won, that would have at least positioned them more solidly, right? And now the Chiefs have fallen back. But nope, you're still right there with them. And the Ravens are like, I don't even know who the Ravens are anymore. They were really fortunate against the Bengals. The Bengals should have beaten the Giants. They should have beaten the Jets, should have beaten the Bears. If Jamar Chase hadn't gotten suspended, they could have beaten the Patriots. They could theoretically be sitting here with at least 2 more wins. Now, that might be a bit of a stretch to say, okay, you should at least have 6 wins now. Now, with Joe Burrow back, that's like an additional formidable team to contend with. You have to deal with the Ravens, the Bengals, the Texans, the Bills, right? The Jaguars, the Chargers. But now they don't have that. The Bills and the Bengals could technically win out. But even then, it's probably not going to be enough wins, and they still have a 2-game gap to overcome. So you're thinking, all right, the Bengals, no matter what Joe Burrow is doing, it's probably not going to be anything too catastrophic for the Chiefs' chances. Miami, nothing major there. So you really are just looking at, I guess Pittsburgh included since someone has to win the division, but you're looking from the 4th seed down to the 10th, and so you've received a gift right now with Baltimore losing. That is a significant gift. And now you just have to, it's more about looking at, the hope is that the Chargers begin to slip. The Jaguars, you look at their schedule and you think, there are still some more potential wins there for them. Buffalo, they obviously haven't been as dominant as many thought they would be, but the notion that they could completely fall off a cliff seems unlikely. Not to mention they hold the tiebreaker over Kansas City. It's just one of those scenarios where you're probably not looking at them dropping out. So the best bet for a playoff spot is likely going to be hoping that either the Steelers or the Ravens falter, right? Depending on how that unfolds, and they still have to play each other, so you'll have to do the math there. The Chargers sliding, the Jaguars sliding, And again, there's still the potential that the Texans could leapfrog everyone as well. So, it's dicey. It's a very precarious situation for Kansas City. And if we examine it from the Cowboys' standpoint, they're sitting at 6 wins, right? The problem is that their wildcard positioning is 2 games back. You're 2 games back from that final wildcard spot. So that already now really, really hurts your chances. And even for the 8th seed, you're still trailing the Lions as well, and then you have to play each other. But teams like San Francisco, Green Bay, Seattle, those squads aren't necessarily set up to completely collapse. And all they really need to do is win a couple more games the rest of the way, and then it's like, okay, you're golden, you're good, you're fine. So it's just a tough situation for Dallas. It's a tough one. I mean, on one side, you should be so incredibly excited about this signature win, but on the other side, you should also be really, really, really furious that you might be wasting a peak prime offensive year with Dak and this offensive arsenal and the coordinator because you didn't do a good enough job of setting this defense up earlier in the season. And you said this was your plan all along with Micah. And it's like, well, then you should have executed it before the draft. You could have made moves. You could have built an awesome defense still prior to all of this. Bing, bang, boom. You could be in a great position right now. You could be an 8 or 9 win team at this point. Certainly more than 6. That's not a far-fetched notion. And then who knows what the landscape looks like next year? You just don't know. You can make all the assumptions you want. Oh, we'll be able to run this back. This will be great and we'll have a better defense. That all sounds wonderful in theory. It doesn't mean it's going to work out in practice. You have no idea. You just have no idea. How do the Lions feel right now? Not great, right? Not great. How did the Bucs feel? They were ready to pop and say, hey, we're doing this all over again. Not great. How did the Minnesota Vikings feel? You can go on and on. How do the Chiefs feel right now? Not great. Things happen with breathtaking speed in the NFL. Things happen fast in this league. So a missed opportunity is a missed opportunity, but maybe they can still sneak in. They kind of have to. They've got to keep winning, run the table most likely, and see what transpires with the other teams. But yeah, a phenomenal game. Honestly, a phenomenal game. But those are merely my reflections. I would be absolutely delighted to hear yours. What are all of your thoughts regarding the Kansas City Chiefs falling to the Dallas Cowboys? Please share your perspectives in the comment section below. I read every single comment, whether you find yourself in agreement with me or you vehemently disagree. Either way, let's engage in some discussions. Let's get into some spirited debates. But ultimately, let's just have an enjoyable exchange. And please do consider subscribing. We are constructing a phenomenal community here, and I would absolutely adore seeing you become a part of it. I am committed to building something we all feel a genuine connection to, something we are truly thrilled to be involved with. I believe we are making significant progress toward achieving that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it genuinely assists with visibility and the platform's algorithm. Thank you all so very much. I will see you next time.